It does not take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority, keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men. Spoken by Samuel Adams. As promised in the first video of the Great Reset series, I discussed isolating the tools and concepts of the Great Reset in further videos in order to have a greater understanding of what is coming our way. In this video, we will be exploring central bank digital currencies, commonly referred to by the acronym CBDC. The following are the main points of the video. What are CBDCs? How are CBDCs different from cryptocurrencies? What risks do CBDCs pose to privacy and freedom? What countries are currently testing pilot programs of CBDCs, and how will CBDCs be rolled out to the public? Central bank digital currency is defined by the United States Federal Reserve as a digital liability of a central bank that is widely available to the general public. Central bank digital currency is essentially a digital form of a country's central bank's reserve currency, which can be used for various purposes such as payments and a store of value, the same as a savings account. Central bank digital currencies can be seen as a replacement for physical cash or an electronic version of the fiat currency already in circulation. But there's a catch, like normal. Anytime you hear the word centralized, used in combination with money or any government agency for that matter, pay attention. As we know, centralization is dangerous to any democracy. Most people are familiar with various forms of digital currency of another name, cryptocurrencies. Most notable of the cryptocurrencies being Bitcoin, but there are major differences between the two. Although both are digital forms of payment, cryptocurrency and its appeal to its users is that cryptocurrency offers its users decentralized control over the payment network that functions as an independent exchange of value between its users. Whereas central bank digital currencies will be issued by a nation's central bank, like the Federal Reserve Bank in America, which will provide the issuing government the ability to record transactions on an unprecedented scale and provide complete control over its supply in a centralized manner. Central bank digital currencies will be tied to your personal bank account, whereas cryptocurrencies operate on an open network. Further notable differences between central bank digital currencies and cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin are payment acceptance and purpose. Central bank digital currencies are considered legal tender since they are backed by the issuing country's reserve currency, whereas the legal status of cryptocurrencies varies by country to country, at least for the time being. The supposed purpose of central bank digital currencies are primarily meant to support the country's payment infrastructure, provide financial inclusion, and bolster countries' economies, while cryptocurrencies serve as a decentralized store of value and a means of payment. Central bank digital currency financial policy is again ostensibly marketed to us as inclusive, safe, secure, and convenient. If you watched my first video giving an overview of the Great Reset, then you will notice that there is a common theme of how every time the elite addresses policy that will reshape the lives of ordinary people on this planet, we are deliberately being rused by carefully and crafted speech in order to engineer your consent into accepting these policies. If you didn't watch the first video, you can check it out here, up in the corner, so that you can provide yourself with a foundational understanding of the Great Reset. I'll also provide a link in the description below. Back to the video. CBDCs pose huge risks to personal privacy as they enable the central bank and other authorities to monitor an individual's financial transactions exclusively, which can have significant implications for personal freedom and privacy. For instance, if the central bank has access to all transaction data, it could potentially use this information for purposes like surveillance, taxation, or regulation. And we know they don't like doing any of that, right? In addition, the use of CBDCs could also make it easier for governments to implement capital controls or restrict access to certain types of financial transactions. Looks like you've had too much beef this week, Bob. No burgers for you this weekend. When you hear the term financial inclusion, I want you to think of taxation. Believe it or not, many citizens in the world still do not have bank accounts. What financial inclusion really means is the inclusion of the untaxed, as if world governments aren't already taking enough from the people of this world. However, it is important to note that the privacy risks posed by CBDCs can be mitigated by implementing appropriate measures such as encryption and pseudonymous transactions. It is imperative that you contact your representatives to ensure that central bank digital currencies will not be another tool to unlawfully gather intelligence on the people. The design and implementation of central bank digital currencies will play an absolutely crucial role in balancing the benefits and drawbacks of the new technology. And if you think that I'm pointing my microphone right now, I am. Central bank digital currencies are digital forms of a country's fiat currency, controlled and issued by the central bank, and differ from cryptocurrencies in terms of issuance, control, legal status, purpose, and stability. Central bank digital currencies pose risks to personal freedom and privacy. It is imperative that we demand our political representatives to create legislation that ensures central bank digital currencies will not be used for nefarious purposes because, like it or not, they're coming. And as a matter of fact, here are the countries piloting CBDC program rollouts right now. The following countries are currently piloting or developing rollout programs of central bank digital currencies. And they are China, Sweden, Japan, Europe, Canada, and the United States. China may not come as a surprise and has been a pioneer in the development of central bank digital currencies, as it is currently testing its digital yuan in various cities across its nation in conjunction with its social credit score system that began in 2014. If you're a Chinese citizen, you had better not criticize your government if you would like to purchase anything, because if you do, your funds may be frozen, because don't forget, a digital currency is also a programmable currency. The Swedish Central Bank also announced that it's exploring the issuance of an e-krona as its version of a CBDC. The Bank of Japan has stated that it will be issuing a CBDC as a means of providing access to the payment system. Remember, inclusive. The ECB has already conducted several proof-of-concept trials relating to the digital euro. The Bank of Canada has said that they are researching digital currency systems while working on building the ability to issue its version of a CBDC. The New York Federal Reserve Bank announced recently that they have completed the first stage of development in their wholesale CBDC for the moment, where their pals across the pond in the Eurozone are working on a more retail-oriented digital currency that can be used for everyday transactions. I'd like you to pay attention that out of 5 of the 6 examples listed are countries that have democratic forms of government. Seems odd, doesn't it? These are only some of the examples of the countries that are currently exploring or piloting CBDCs. This is not an exhaustive list, and just a notable few that are currently piloting, exploring, or developing central bank digital currencies. If you'd like to check out and access a complete list, I will provide a link in the description below that uses an interactive global map to show you just how many countries are developing central bank digital currencies. So, how will CBDCs be rolled out to the public? The exact process of issuing CBDCs to the public will largely depend on the specific design and implementation of the issuing country's CBDC. However, here are some possible ways that CBDC issuance to the public might look like. Through 4 likely models of direct, indirect, hybrid, and tiered issuance. Direct issuance. In this case, the central bank would issue CBDCs directly to the public. This can be done through a digital wallet made available as an application on your smartphone. Remember, though, that the central bank will have total control over the issuance of the currency, and you will only be able to hold the money in your digital wallet. Indirect issuance. In this model, the central bank would issue digital currency to commercial banks, which would in turn distribute CBDCs to the public. This model would allow the central bank to maintain control over the issuance and circulation of CBDCs, while commercial banks would serve as the middleman for distribution. Hybrid system. In this model, the central bank would issue CBDCs directly to the public and maintain the ability to issue digital currency to commercial banks. Tiered issuance. In this method, the central bank would issue central bank digital currencies in different tiers, with different levels of accessibility and privileges. For example, certain individuals or entities like the elite 1% and large corporations might be able to hold large amounts of CBDCs, while the lower class might only be able to hold small and limited amounts. What will the lure be to draw us into CBDCs? Could it be through periodic stimulus payments made available only through digital currencies? Could it be a form of universal basic income, again only available through digital currency payment installments? Will a lure even be necessary? Or are we as a society so infatuated with ourselves and our vain pleasures to even notice? Let me know what you think in the comments. There are some very real dangers that are associated with CBDCs. What is very alarming is that Klaus Schwab and the WEF are praising the Chinese social credit system alongside the rollout of its digital yuan pilot program. As noted in the first video of the Great Reset series, we have already seen how the Chinese government restricted access to its citizens' travel, numbering them millions of times based off of their poor social credit score. Now imagine what kind of power digital currencies would give to a government that has already proven to be restrictive and tyrannical to its citizens. I think the biggest threat to freedom for citizens all around the world will be the eventual mandate of purchasing through central bank digital currency alone. It is not a stretch of the imagination to go from a digital wallet on a smartphone to a digital wallet being stored in a biochip implant. With one of the main pillars of the Great Reset being artificial intelligence, it is more important now than at any time in human history to ensure that these technologies are designed and implemented with great caution and a great understanding of how these technologies could be misused if fallen into the wrong hands. The democratic process must be ingrained in the very fabric of these technologies. What about decentralized digital currency like Bitcoin? Will they pose too much of a threat to world government CBDCs to the point of them being destroyed? Time will tell. If the day should come where a biochip requirement is mandated by a government for purchasing goods and commodities, you can be sure that if we the people allow that to happen, then we the people allowed our freedom to be lost. We have God-given rights that are inalienable. Do not forget that. Am I thinking too far into this? Or are my worries justified? Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments, because I sure would like to be wrong on this. Stick around for the next video on the Great Reset series, which you can find here. See you there, and thanks for watching.